preparing a standardized curriculum which Paul Vallis hopes all local school councils will adopt. 4 years ago, 70% of Chicago's students were failing basic skills tests. Today, 65% are failing.
We have a long way to go, but I think we're on the right track.
But school reform is on two tracks in Chicago, directly and fiercely competing with each other. Does their bitter competition threaten whatever educational progress Chicago has made? So what is your fear?
Absolute power corrupts absolutely. People remember what this system was like when it was highly centralized. It wasn't that long ago. And that's the great worry, I think, on the part of many of the reformers.
So you're saying there needs to be a constant tension?
There needs to be the acknowledgement that we're partners in this effort. And that's what's missing, I think, is the central acknowledgement of that partnership.
The struggle for control continues in Chicago. Mayor Daley and Paul Vallis want to restrict the power of local school councils, which are, of course, fighting back. Stay tuned. Seattle's a different story. A city united about the need for reform, the path to follow, and the leader to lead it. It's a story of remarkable accomplishments, sudden tragedy, and an unanswered question. What happens to reform when its leader is no longer there? In the spring of 1994, Seattle took stock of its schools and decided change was necessary. For one thing, about 25% of its students were dropping out.
We can't continue to produce children who are underperforming in any global reckoning.
We have a school system that's not broken. It's nowhere near as good as it needs to be, but it's not broken.
We're not going to get better grades on these test scores and kids more fluent in math and science by paying teachers more money or sitting there trying to pour more curriculum in it. We got to redesign the thing. We've got to do it differently.
We have a city that's not broken. Seattle is a very well-run city. We have a very supportive and organized business community. We have a very supportive press. And we have a highly effective union leadership. And I said, I don't know of a single urban system in the United States that has those 5 criteria present.
Seattle's test scores were average. About half of its students passed basic skills tests in reading and math. But there was a significant gap in achievement between white students and students of color.
We need a transformational leader. We don't need just a leader. We need a change agent.
The teachers' union was in agreement.
I felt we really needed to have somebody who would come in with a fresh look and who wouldn't come in having said, well, we tried that before.
Among the non-traditional candidates contacted was retired Major General John Stanford, then working in Georgia. His son Scott remembers.
My reaction, just like everyone else's, was, Superintendent of Schools, what are you doing? And he said, well, you got to keep your options open.
John Stanford had a 30-year career in the U.S. Army. After retiring in 1991 as a Major General, he worked as county manager in Fulton County, Georgia. He and his wife liked what they saw in Seattle, and he became a candidate.
The guy was amazing, and in his jet black, double-breasted suit, he stands up on the platform. He never strayed from Ramrod Strait for about 2 hours.
In July of 1995, John Stanford was selected by the school board.
And this was a town that refused to have a Gulf War parade, okay? And so us hiring a 4-star Army general who had not was a clean slate in terms of education, people, there were skeptics.
He defied my stereotype of a general. In fact, I wasn't sure I wanted to work with him when he was first appointed because I didn't think I could work as a teammate with a general.
The general quickly won over the skeptics. On the first day of school, he threw a back-to-school rally.
And we have to get the entire community excited about educating our children.
John Stanford's educational philosophy was simple and direct.
Everything that we ask one question. What is in the best interest of our children?
Stanford launched a community-wide reading offensive.
It was hard for people to argue with that point of view. They knew that was right, and they knew that reading was the gateway to all other learning, so of course we had to start there.
Support grew for the man the media dubbed the Children's Crusader. Seattle's children were particularly drawn to him. Robin Pascarella remembers walking in the park with John Stanford and meeting a group of second graders.
One of the students saw John, yelled out his name, ran across, in her bathing suit all wet, wriggling, and there's John Stanford, our superintendent. And the next thing I knew, this little girl who was a second grader was running up to us, followed by this trail of other little children, all coming to see their superintendent.
If you had walked into any classroom in the Seattle Public Schools and asked any child of any age, who's the superintendent? They'd have told you, John Stanford is the superintendent. I guarantee you.
And of course, when they came up to him, he remembered them, he remembered his visit to their school, and then he said, "Have you been reading this summer?"
I'm excited about it here on my first day of school.
He was totally amazed at how well Seattle received him and received what he was trying to do and say. I mean, it always amazed him. He would call friends in other parts of the country, say, "You just won't believe this place."
I am so honored to be your superintendent. I am so honored to serve your child and to serve all of the children here.
We discovered early on that we both had the same kind of values, and we had a passion for educating urban children, and so we really, the relationship came together quickly.
He empowered people in the lowest ranks. He empowered the people on the street. He empowered everyday citizens that they can make a difference in children's lives. And he went into the schools and he talked about how wonderful our teachers are.
When someone impressed John Stanford, he offered that person a job.
I was in the elevator one day, and the elevator opened, and in walked John Stanford, and he said to me, "Hi, I'm John Stanford." I said, "Hi, I'm Joseph Olszewski," and we just started talking. And between the second floor and the fourth floor, we struck up a relationship.
Joseph Olszewski was a successful investment banker.
And he didn't have a chief financial officer, and he knew there was really going to be a serious problem. So he asked me to join, and the district, and I said, "Yeah, that sounds great."
Yes, a lot of new people involved. Larry is new. Joseph has been here about 60 days today, and I've been the superintendent for 75 days.
Almost immediately, Stanford began changing Seattle schools, always with an eye toward giving more power to school principals, to teachers, and to parents. Seattle had been divided about busing for desegregation for years. No more.
It used to be you were assigned a school to go to. Now in Seattle, we have 63 elementary schools. As a parent, you can go to any one of them you want.
That's a major structural change. Or to say that another way, schools now are competing to attract students to their school.
A second major change was in the way schools were funded. Instead of assuming that it costs the same amount to educate each child, Seattle recognized that children were different and their educational needs were different.
So we created what is called the weighted student formula. So if you have a child in Seattle Public Schools, on the brow of that child is a dollar figure.
We have $2,500 kids in our district, and we have $25,000 kids in our district.
And whatever amount it cost to educate a child, those dollars went to whatever school the parents chose. Schools were now competing for students. That's another radical change.
The budget of my school now is a function of both the number of children and the type who elect to come, because they have a choice. But also, by the way, if they don't come, I don't get funded. So all of a sudden now, I need to recruit. I need to create an educational environment that attracts children.
Teachers and their union leader, Roger Erskine, realized that their world was changing, and they were ready to make concessions to be part of reform.
What happened in the old unionism was, the general motto was management decides and the union grieves. Well, that didn't work. It didn't work for children in urban schools.
We have a 221-page union contract. It is a picture book document of decades of mistrust. It's the most onerous employee document I've ever seen in my life. And we said to him, let's move it off. This is yesterday. Let's talk about tomorrow.
And so what we are doing is we're changing the mix here. We're coming at this in a different way to get the focus off of the adults and onto the children.
The time to say that is now.
Stanford wanted individual schools to be able to hire their staffs, but in most teacher union agreements, seniority rules. That means veteran teachers have first choice of vacancies.
And as a teacher and as a union member, that was a real powerful thing as an individual, because I could say, I'm going to leave this school and I'm going to go and I'm going to choose my job based on my seniority. But it wasn't good for the schools.
We moved to something that we think is better than seniority. We moved to a qualifications-based hiring, which is really what our teachers have been asking for a long time. With the decisions about who would be hired in the schools made by teachers and principals.
There's a leadership team of 6 teachers selected by their peers in each building, and that leadership team with the principal has the authority to hire and fire staff.
So we're saying now, hey, listen, at the site level, you get to make the decisions. But guess what? I mean, that's where the responsibility's at, too.
I mean, when everybody buys into something, you have a much more smoothly running operation.
Is this a permanent change in Seattle? Can you imagine going back to the old way?
Nothing's permanent. I don't want to go back to the old way, but I would make no guess I make no predictions as to what would happen.
No one could have predicted that tragedy was around the corner.
2 weeks ago at a Washington, D.C. conference, a weak and feverish Stanford checked himself into Walter Reed Hospital. D.C. doctors sent Stanford back home to Seattle for testing. Last night, he learned the news. He has leukemia.
The important thing to note is this is a disease that tends to be rapidly progressive, but again, with intensive chemotherapy, there is a great optimism that a remission can be achieved.
Well, we're making the cranes for John Stanford because this one Japanese legend said you had to fold 1,000 cranes so somebody can get well.
His supporters created a Get Well Fund. John Stanford asked that any money that was contributed be spent on books for school libraries.
I, John Stanford, do solemnly affirm that I will love, cherish, and protect every child entrusted to my care. I affirm that I will endeavor to prepare all students to meet the highest...
John Stanford lost his battle with cancer November 28, 1998.
Officials at the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center say Stanford died at 1:35 this morning from a recurrence of his leukemia and complications from the treatment.
His Get Well Fund had raised over $500,000. That money was used, as he had wished, to buy books.
I want to thank all of the people of Seattle and Washington State and across the country who contributed to make his dream come true.
And the kids are going to be reading these books for the next decades to come. And it's a great day for Seattle. It's a great day for our kids. So thank you, John Stanford.
I might need to read that one.
Who knows who John Stanford was? And can somebody tell?
Belinda?
The superintendent.
That's right. What do you remember most about John Stanford? Nikki?
He wanted us to read.
In February 1999, Joseph Olszewski was chosen to succeed John Stanford.
It's a special treat for us.
Yeah, I'm going to read you a book. It's called A Blue Butterfly.
The unanswered question is, will Stanford's reforms continue?
You see me hesitate to answer, and that is because John's no longer here to push it. Olszewski is a good manager, but there was an element of Stanford's push, an element of the way he granted those principals independence and said, go do, you do it. We're not yet sure Olszewski's going to be that way.
We lost a very dynamic leader, but the district is not broken and was not broken. He surrounded himself with good people. And the person who has taken over in Joseph Olszewski is a very shining light.
I think the changes we've created are very positive, very well accepted by our public. I think our parents are responding well. I think our student performance is going up.
Scores are up only slightly, but the achievement gap between white students and students of color is closing. Perhaps of greater significance are the structural changes in the Seattle system. Parents have choice, money goes to the school they choose, and a team of teachers and the principal at each school does the hiring without regard to seniority. Will it continue?
Yes. But that's one of the things I'm most confident about in terms of what we've been able to do together up to this point, is to really build these platforms or systems so that so that it doesn't rely on a personality.
What gets lost in a lot of this talk about General John Stanford is really the contribution that the community in Seattle made to what happened here.
Seattle is a textbook case of what's possible when there's a charismatic leader whom people want to follow, a cooperative teachers union, and a focus on children's issues. Philadelphia offers nearly the opposite set of circumstances. A leader with a knack for offending people, a union more concerned about teacher prerogatives than student learning, and too often, an inability to get beyond adult issues. David Hornbeck arrived in Philadelphia in August of 1994 and immediately began explaining his plan, which he called Children Achieving. He met with parents and representatives of community groups.
His phrase, "Now is the time, Philadelphia is the place," and I would add a little more, and we are the change makers.
Because people have to engage, people have to have hope, people have to buy in, people have to understand.
He went to synagogues, mosques, and churches.
Coming to the black church was very significant on his part.
And many believe that the school district cannot change enough to help children learn, but it will.
All right.
With your help.
Yes.
He met with principals.
I would just like to say thanks.
He did not meet with many of the city's 12,500 teachers. If he had, he'd have encountered skepticism.
All we do is come in every day and do our job and try to teach these children, no matter what's happening up at the top.
Teachers Union President Ted Kirsch was also skeptical.
Here we go again. Another reformer, another new superintendent. I mean, I could relate the superintendents that we've had the last 5 or 6. They all had a program. And as soon as the successor came in, what's the first thing that happens? Do away with the old program. Now we have a new program.
Children Achieving called for full-day kindergarten, more technology, and reorganizing the district into small clusters. Hornbeck also felt that Philadelphians had to change their attitude.
The biggest single problem we face, in my view, is what the kids would refer to as an attitude problem. People who don't believe that kids can learn at high levels, particularly if they're African American or speak Spanish or have disabilities or so on.
Hornbeck's honeymoon came quickly to a crashing end.
Philadelphia School Superintendent David Hornbeck wanted $120 million in the 95-96 budget to meet his so-called Children Achieving initiatives and make citywide improvements. But the district could only come up with $40 million. The budget was adopted today and calls for 64 cluster schools to begin phase 1 of Children Achieving next year. But the remaining 193 city schools will have to wait.
Does this, in a sense, mean that we will be running 2 different systems within the district simultaneously? Unfortunately, the answer is yes.
Hornbeck refused to compromise his plan, but he made it clear that this was someone else's fault, not his.
Because the state and the city have not stepped forward, we're going to have 190 schools, roughly, that are not going to have the opportunity of early childhood and more books and more computers.
The advocacy community was outraged. They said that they were further polarizing the school district into have and have not schools, and he should not do that. I mean, if there isn't enough money, people have to share the hurt.
The mayor, who had fought to bring Hornbeck to Philadelphia, defended him.
He may be doing some controversial things, but you know, if that ship's 4/5 underwater, it's time to come up with some innovative ways to either get it righted or get us all out.
To his supporters, Hornbeck is standing firm, but his detractors find him unbending and self-righteous.
The only thing important to David Hornbeck is that his plan, as he sees it, be instituted. Period.
It's easy for them to think that he's self-righteous because he is serious about changing things. And maybe his attitude, you know, is sort of preacher-like, messianic.
He would put Machiavelli to shame.
If you're going to call for David Hornbeck's ouster, tell me what he's done wrong and tell me what you would do differently.
Where's the balance? It's not all one-sided. Every time David Hornbeck talks to us, it's one-sided, it's one way, it's his way.
David has great integrity, but he doesn't have that kind of charisma that Stanford had in Seattle, that Ed Rendell has, because cities so much of it is perception. So much of it is convincing a very tired, cynical, suspicious electorate that we can do it.
Probably in a popularity contest, I wouldn't win very many friends, but I didn't come here for that reason either. I came here for children achieving.
And maybe David Hornbeck's fault is he has the wrong personality, which is no fault at all, but I think it counts for a lot.
And it would be wonderful to be both produce the goods and be charismatic, but I'm who I am.
They want a cheerleader. They want a guy, reading about Stanford and Seattle, I want a guy who's out there, who's pounding away, who plays in front of the cameras and gives you that sense that you really love those kids.
This is not about me personally. This is about a new agenda for America's children and for Philadelphia's children.
Hornbeck's second year began smoothly with the opening of full-day kindergarten in most of the city's elementary schools.
But we want to show how very, very, very bright we are.
With full-day kindergarten a reality, Hornbeck began to press for other parts of his children achieving plan. At the top of his list, accountability.
There were 6 teachers dismissed for unsatisfactory performance last year out of 12,500.
It's silly. David Hornbeck is right. It's ridiculous not to be able to fire incompetent teachers. And in a school system of 12,000 teachers, to say only a handful should be fired every year is silly. It's absolutely silly.
With the teachers' union contract about to expire, Hornbeck pressed for change.
We must build an accountability system for staff that for the first time links achievement by students, including those with whom we've historically failed, to real rewards, assistance for those who are having trouble, and penalties for persistent or dramatic failure.
Union leaders felt that Hornbeck did not understand the realities of the classroom. If I'm a teacher and I set out to teach the kids long division, and they all learn long division, did I do a good job?
Yes. Now, what if they didn't?
Okay.
What if they didn't learn long division?
Did I do a bad job?
Let's say you teach 3 classes, and in one class they could do it, in one class they couldn't. Are you doing a good job or a bad job? Or
How about a good job in one class and a bad job in the other?
But you did the same job in both classes. What's wrong?
Somehow, teachers have to be held accountable. Not just teachers, but teachers have to be included in this for whether the students achieve.
You're asking, can you evaluate a teacher on the performance of the students?
Yes. Yes or no?
No, you cannot.
You cannot evaluate a teacher on the
Right.
performance of his or her students?
Right.
Hornbeck also challenged another sacred cow. In Seattle, the union had, in effect, traded seniority for the right to be part of the hiring process.
I think a team of teachers at the local school and their principal ought to get to decide who's going to teach at that school.
That was not likely to happen in Philadelphia.
I think that what Hornbeck wants is the total right to assign people wherever he thinks they should be assigned. And this union can't accept that.
Does that strike you as the right way to run a school? That the administration has no control over who gets to come in and teach there?
Yes.
It does?
Mm-hmm.
If you were a principal, would that work for you?
Well, as long as I've been rated satisfactory, why would the principal object to me coming there?
Do you think the principal ought to have some say in it? A chance to meet you and see if there's some kind of meshing?
They might not like the way I comb my hair, John, and not choose me for that fact.
I think that the membership would say seniority is a great union protection. We have fought for that. That is ours. You cannot take it away. Why would they do it? Because they care about kids? I don't think they care about kids. I think they care about their jobs. They care about their own protection.
But that seniority rule is important to you.
It's the sacred cow.
Tension was mounting. The union called a general meeting of the membership.
All those in favor of authorizing the executive board to conduct a strike, please rise as you give your answer to aye.
Mayor Ed Rendell confronted the union.
So what did you say to Ted Kirsch, Jack Steiner?
I said, look, guys, you can't be so unbending, and you can't make your agenda destroying David, because you're not going to destroy David, at least as long as I'm here.
What did they say? 6 days before schools were to open, Hornbeck and the union agreed on a contract. Both sides claimed victory.
We got a good contract.
In effect, we won.
This contract achieved real educational reform. For the first time, we have true accountability in our system.
We know that the superintendent's abhorrent accountability program and his punitive concept of punishment appears nowhere in this contract.
He got a contract that wasn't what he would have wanted to have. It didn't make a lot of progress in the areas of accountability.
You wanted to make a dent in the seniority rules.
That's right.
And you failed completely.
And we more or less failed to do that.
As David Hornbeck began his third year in the fall of 1996, he was determined not to back down on the issue of accountability.
I'm here this afternoon because I have decided to declare Olney and one other high school in the city a Keystone school.
Keystoning allowed Hornbeck to transfer out 3/4 of the teachers and bring in new people. Olney High was one of the city's lowest performing schools.
This is an absolute fraud. It's been perpetrated on us by the administration. It's been perpetrated on us, not only on the students, but on the faculty also, who have built their careers here. I am very proud to be an Olney teacher, and I will be very proud to be the first one out of here.
Union President Kirsch met with Olney's teachers.
This morning, I instructed our attorney to go to court to seek a temporary injunction to stop the process. That's number one. Number two, we have filed an unfair labor practice.
That is a strategy that Federation leadership has used, is to object, expect the district to say, oh my goodness, and then not go ahead. And life's too short to play the game that way.
So you just go ahead?
We go ahead.
He does not respect the sanctity of a contract. You can't keep violating it and then blame the other person. That's what he's doing.
What if you lose? What if an arbiter says you cannot keystone?
Well, I think that's sad. I really, again, I don't understand why the union keeps defending the status quo.
Hornbeck lost. On July 9th, 1997, the arbitrator threw out keystoning and criticized Hornbeck for not consulting with the union, as the contract requires.
I would hope that the superintendent will finally come to realize that he has to adhere to not just the language of the contract, but the spirit, the intent.
Leaving aside whether or not it complied with the legal requirements of the contract, the way he did it was destined to create problems for himself.
Fair to say you blew it?
From my perspective, not at all.
Up to now, most of David Hornbeck's battles had been with the teachers' union. He was about to take on the state legislature and the governor over money.
I went to him late one night and said, Mayor, if we continue down the same budget strategy that this system's been on for a long time, this deal's going to be over in June, 6 months later. And you just need to know that. It was that evening, 11:30 at night, at his house when he said, all right, we're not going to cut, and we're going to sue the state.
Basically, they drew a line in the sand, telling the state, give us money or we'll shut the schools.
Either we are going to decimate the school system, and by that I mean wiping out all of kindergarten and books and computers and everything of any pretense related to reform, or we won't be able to make the year, and the school district will just shut down.
Pennsylvania's governor, Tom Ridge, was not pleased.
I mean, it was the only superintendent in my 5 years as governor, out of 501 superintendents who was willing to put together a budget based on what he thought he should have rather than what the legislature was going to send him and what local government was going to send him as well. And so to get exactly what he wanted when he wanted it, he threatened to close the schools.
Then, in a speech, Hornbeck implied that the state's behavior was racist.
Because everybody, every single body is God's somebody, except too often children in Philadelphia.
He made a speech to the National Council of Churches.
Yeah, just insane.
It is a speech that, in my judgment, needed to be made.
That is the David Hornbeck messianic, if you don't believe in me, stuff that's crap.
If you disagreed with him about money, he equated that to some sense of racism.
We have not stood silently by. We have not simply taken it. We have actively filed lawsuits. We have spoken the truth.
That's just an example of bad political skills. You don't say that stuff when the legislature is the very body that needs to increase our funding.
And I don't think that that's, again, an effective strategy or way to communicate your intense passion and desire for reform and change.
It made him angry. It made him more than angry. I think it got him extremely disturbed. And I think as a result, that's why you saw that that legislation that passed, that the governor and the legislature got to a point where they just didn't like what the superintendent was doing.
Dwight Evans and most other state legislators approved a new law to allow the state to take over Philadelphia schools and fire David Hornbeck.
It was a direct threat. And when someone is threatened, they're going to react. And that's exactly what the governor has done. And that's why the takeover legislation came about. When you look at that legislation, it's clearly, you're not going to tell us what to do. If you go and threaten us, we'll take you out.
Typically, David Hornbeck did not back away.
The alternative was to say, okay, we give up. The kids in Philadelphia are not going to be able to achieve. We need to keep these poor kids, these black kids, these Latino kids, these disabled kids under the staircase. And we really apologize for our temerity to think that every single one of these kids could be taken out from under the staircase.
To Ted Kirsch, Hornbeck was continuing a pattern of alienating people.
We were first. We were first to be alienated. It's the city council, it's the state legislature, there are community groups, there are school communities, and I think it's unfortunate. The governor more important than anyone else, because when you have a state surplus for money, a friendly governor could certainly help this school system.
I do regret the confrontation. I regret that the governor took it the way he did. I regret that Harrisburg hasn't yet ceased its mistreatment of Philadelphia children.
Hornbeck filed other lawsuits against the state. All have been dismissed, but he's appealing. In the spring of 1999, as Hornbeck's fifth year drew to a close, the school board voted, under pressure from Mayor Rendell, to extend his contract for 2 years.
Mr. Austin?
Here, yes.
Sister Levan?
Yes.
Dr. Mills?
No.
The motion passes.
Motion passes.
He's still not the most easy fellow to deal with because he believes so passionately in things that sometimes David sees compromise as inherently evil, and I don't. But you don't make the type of progress he's made across the board by alienating people and having 2 steps back for every 1 step forward. We wouldn't be where we are.
We have fought the myth that our kids can't learn. And by that I mean poor kids and disabled kids and non-native English speakers and African-American kids. And we have made, I think, substantive, palpable, measurable evidence that that myth is a myth.
Philadelphia students are doing better. 4 years ago, 71% failed basic skills tests in math and reading. In 1999, 58% failed basic skills tests in math, reading, and science.
I'm satisfied very much with where we are. It's not at all where we've got to be.
What David has done has been nothing short of miraculous.
I would be absolutely delighted if other great city school systems like Chicago and Seattle and Boston and New York City, we all arrive, because that would mean tens of thousands, hundreds of millions of children moving there. One of us has got to get there.
None of these 3 cities, not Philadelphia, not Chicago, not Seattle, can declare victory, but all 3 seem to be making progress. There may never be a day when a city can say, it's over, we've won.